Listen up, everybody. You are not going to believe it today. I have two of the biggest names in the industry on the show today. Episode 199 of Standing Out. Let's go. All right, everybody, it is time to get started. Trey Griggs here, Beta Consulting Group, and you are here for episode 199, the last episode with a 1 in the front of the number. Super excited for tomorrow, episode 200 of Standing Out. And we've got a big show. We got Matt Leffler, the one and only armchair attorney, who's going to be our guest host tomorrow. We're inviting back some of our guests that we've had. We're going to do some giveaways. We're going to have an absolute blast. It's going to be an hour-long show. It's a special, so make sure you join us tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Central for an hour. It's the finale of 2022. We're going to be talking about what's coming in 2023, what I'm going to be doing for the next 4 weeks, and all kinds of good stuff as well. So look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Central for episode 200, the 2022 finale of Standing Out. It's going to be awesome. Also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, TAFS, the good guys in freight factoring. They are helping owner-operators and small carriers keep those wheels turning with cash flow resources, discounts on fuel, tires, and so many other things. If you are behind the wheel of a truck or if you're owning a small fleet, do yourself a favor. Go to TAFS.com and let them know that Trey sent you. Get started with them today. Or make it even easier and click on the link in the comments today that takes you right to my landing page so they know that I sent you. And again, if you are behind the wheel of a truck or a small carrier owner, thank you so much. We appreciate all that you are doing. All right, so Sean, what's up? Good to see you in the show. You remind me of that one commercial, the Geico. I think it's Geico or something commercial. What day is it? Hump Day. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for being on the show. Everybody else watching, let us know where you're watching from today. So excited to have you with us today. Also, while you're online, make sure you check us out at betaconsultinggroup.com and see how we are helping companies move out of the realm of obscurity into becoming a well-known and trusted brand to grow revenue. Need some more inbound leads? Reach out to us. We are the SEO specialist. We will help you out with that. Fill out a form. We'd love to talk to you. We're working with freight brokers and logistics tech companies in particular and carriers, and we would love to work with you. So fill out a form. We'll reach out to you, and we will get started today. Also, while you're there, you might as well pick up a little bit of swag. We're going to be doing some new things with the swag store, some new items, and removing some old items. So check it out at shop.betaconsultinggroup.com. Find some good stuff like this water bottle and so many other things. And use the coupon code Merry Christmas to get 25% off your entire order. Some good gifts in there. We're going to have some Christmas-themed items here coming up really soon, as well as some new things for 2023. All right, listen, we got a big show. No need to talk about me any longer or the company. We got to get this party started. So we're going to switch things up a little bit. We're going to bring in one guest at a time today, and then the other one we'll have them all together. So first, please welcome from CS Recruiting, the one and only Charlie Saffro.
Hey, Trey.
I picked some walk-up music for you. I hope you don't mind. A little Miley Cyrus, you know.
Love that jam.
So
yeah.
as you know, I've got 2 daughters, so I'm very much into Miley Cyrus, and so of course that's kind of where it goes. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. Congrats to you on 199 episodes. That is a real commitment. So I'm
Well, it's crazy. And I don't know if you remember this, but it wasn't that long ago that you hosted the 100th episode, and it's really gone pretty fast, but it's been an absolute blast. And you've been so kind to be on this show so many times. Thank you so much, my friend. It is great to have you. John Sutton, what's up from Sunset Transportation? Great to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. So what's new? What's good, my friend?
There is a lot going on right now. So ends of the year. It's always a weird time. I'd say December is very unpredictable, but we're busier than we expected. I think everyone knows by now that the market, I almost want to say it has shifted. It's not even shifting anymore. For a long time, we saw candidates in control, and it has flipped. Now hiring companies are back in control. So lots of interesting insights, perspectives, trends that we're seeing, but good news for companies. There's a lot of talent out there, and there's still a lot of hope for the candidates. There's a job out there for you. It just may take a little more, push on your end to find the right fit.
That's right. The pendulum always swings, and it's swung back pretty hard right now in the last 2 to 3 months. That's for sure. But let's not talk too much about that yet. We got to get Brent here in a minute. But before I do that, you've had a couple of things going on at CS Recruiting. You guys had your company Christmas party with this great picture here. Where is this in Chicago? Where did you guys have this?
This is at a restaurant called Guildhall. It's in one of
See
the,
that again.
a suburb between the city and the North Shore. So yeah, we had a great time. That was last week. Great showing, White Elephant, good food, good drinks. Great way to wrap up the
Nice.
day.
Yeah, that was cool. I love seeing that picture and everybody's so happy, which is awesome. It's always nice to get people together. And as a remote company, I know that you do value those times where you get everybody together and everybody looked really happy. So that was a lot of fun.
Yep.
There's also something else that we've been a part of, and that is our good friend Matt Leffler, who's actually going to be the guest host tomorrow on the show. He's had some twins recently, and hopefully he's getting some sleep. But we had a little copycat going on, and it's actually started to really, pervade throughout the industry a little bit. Check this out. He's gotten count them, 4 sets of onesies so far. They got the CS Recruiting onesies and bids, the word on the street. Rocket Shipping sent some, as well as Truck Safe Consulting. But I must admit, my friend, you were the first. So I have to give you credit for that.
Thank you. Thank you. We didn't always have those onesies, but I would say in the last 6 years, we've just had a boom of babies internally with our team. So we decided it was time to start making something for the next generation of CS recruiting, our clients and friends. So, I was kidding when I called you a copycat, but look at these are outfitted for life now.
Oh, I love it. No, it's been a lot of fun. It's been great. Well, listen, we got to get our good friend Brent Orsuga onto the show here. So, everybody, without further ado, please give it up for the man from Pinnacle Growth Advisors who is recovering from that Achilles and he's got the shoe back on. Everybody, give it up for our good friend Brent Orsuga. Brent, what's up, brother?
What's up, buddy? I like the biggie. That's how I was born and raised, so I can get down with that.
Look, I knew this would be a good one for you, man. Absolutely. And so, anyways, good to see you, man. How are you doing, brother?
Much better, much better.
Good. Getting out to hike a little bit more back at Pinnacle Peak, shooting some baskets again. I saw a little bit of that. Taking the girls to Arizona State for that basketball game. That was pretty tight, man. A lot of good things happening right now.
Yeah, we go 100 miles per hour, so that was the hardest part about dealing with this injury once, let alone twice. But you hit 45. That in basketball tends to be a bad combination sometimes, but coming back pretty quick. So I'm not a victim. I control what I can control, one day at a time, win the day. That's kind of how I approach life, how I approach business. But like Charlie, we're busier than I expected. It has not slowed down in any capacity. Usually this time of year, everyone kind of chills, which makes it hard for someone like myself. But I don't know about you, Charlie, but we already got people placed on January 23rd starting, right? So it's go time 100%.
We are starting to see a lot of that and a little earlier this year than usually.
Yeah, it's great to see because there's talent out there. So I think some companies, especially the ones that are a little more savvy, are saying, you know what, there's some good talent that can be picked up right now. Let's not wait and let's get that done. So great to hear that you guys are busy. There's a lot to talk about today. Before we do that, though, Brent, I got to give you a shout out, man. You're always challenging us to keep getting better. I know you're doing some work with Andy Frizella and so many others, and you're always promoting a reading. I saw this one you had with in front when you went to Alabama with Birmingham and some of the other books. Man, where's your love for books and learning come from? I got to ask.
I'm a student for success. I think once I got tapped into having learning be such an important aspect of my life, and I've seen the results that have come forward, I go all in. And so, your brain is not a gas tank. It can never be full. Right. And so it's we live in a world right now where there's so much information available to us and free information. I remember having Tony Robbins CDs. If you remember back in the day, you have a CD rack at on your thing up top. And now YouTube, podcasts, books, audiobooks. There's more information available to you. And for me, I would rather choose my time there than just scrolling randomly on social media, focus on other people's lives and what they're doing. I'm going to tap into this as much as I can. So
yeah, I love that. You think about our age, we're all from pretty much the same generation. Yeah. Back in the day, if we wanted to know something, we had to look in an encyclopedia or ask somebody near us. Yeah. There was no tapping into information unless you went to the library and did some reading. And that was really, that was it. But you're right. There's really no excuse not to get better, not to improve, not to work on yourself. Even if it's 10 minutes a day, even if it's something small, there's so much information at your fingertips. We're going to jump into that today and talk about what prospective employees can do, to continue to grow and get better. But let's start with this. So you guys are a little bit busy. What are you guys seeing in the marketplace right now? We talked a little bit about the pendulum switch. Charlie, I'm going to start with you. What are you seeing from employers and from prospective employees? Let's start with employers first.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way to think about it is human nature. We have needs and we have wants. And what we've been seeing in the market up until now is that the candidates could really go after their wants. They could go after what they really felt they deserved, and especially after reflecting during the pandemic. So the connection, the purpose, the flexibility, the culture. And now that that's shifting, candidates are starting to really prioritize what they need again. So while compensation never left that list of priorities, it was sitting at like number 3 or 4 for the last 12 to 18 months. It's right back up to number 1. So, and I think you can think of that the reverse way too, that these hiring companies, the last year or so when the market had, a lot of talent, they could really focus on what they needed. And now it's more about what they wanted. And so I think it's an interesting dichotomy to really look at, how you separate needs and wants and how it can flip so easily. So from a 3PL standpoint, lots of sales positions. I think, Brent, would you agree with that? Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it is sales heavy by far. I mean, I'm going to say 80 to 90% of the roles out there are sales driven, but I'm going to piggyback on what Charlie said, because I agree the market has flipped. And I know one of the things that we're doing when we educate these candidates on what they should be looking for, yes, the pay is great, right? But I saw a lot of people take what I'm going to call short money. They focused on one aspect of the entire dynamic. I'm looking at these companies now like systems, just like college programs. And, Trey, we're big sports people. Certain programs breed winners. There's success stories there. They're factories. They train, the way they onboard, the tools and systems. So, rather than just focus on a 10, 15, 30 grand increase, which we can get, what about the system, the commissions, the leadership? Where is this company going? What's the track record? Just like this post I did yesterday. Show me the last 3 years. Show me what you did during COVID, because we're coming up on 3 years of that. 3 years. If you have not adapted now, when are you going to, right?
Yeah,
so I think that's
crazy
where the evaluation needs to take place. Is I want to see success stories. I want to see what I'm going to have access to. I want to understand operations behind me. I want to know if there's saturation. I want to know what the commission looks like. These are questions that these individuals should be asking as well. It can never be a one-way street.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And, to think it's hard to believe we're at 3 years. It really is crazy to think that in just 3 months, it's going to be 3 years since the pandemic started and all that. But the question that I would ask people who especially are either looking for a new opportunity or who have been laid off is you really have to evaluate the leadership. And like you said, the systems. To me, that's more important than the job and the pay. Even though those things are important, they're further down the list than me, because if you get with a good leader, if you get with a good system, it will elevate your performance in a way that the opposite will not. And to me, that's really, really critical. It's like, going for a program. Do you want to be second string at Alabama football, or do you want to be first string at Grambling State? Nothing against Grambling State, but I'll tell you what, you're probably going to learn a lot more and get more prepared for life and maybe even a professional career or coaching at Alabama, even if you're not starting, in the game every week. I think that's really critical to think about those kind of things. So let's switch gears and talk about this real quick. Let's sort of dissect what happened. We saw quite a few layoffs, over 50,000 layoffs in tech companies in November. I think it brings us to over 140,000 tech layoffs across industries this year. What happened? Let's dissect August, September, October, and certainly November 9th. We saw a lot of layoffs in our industry and throughout. Charlie, try to dissect that for us a little bit.
Yeah, I think the early layoffs seem to be a lot of recruiters. That's kind of what we were sensing. And I think that makes a lot of sense that companies bulked up. Maybe they even started their first internal recruiting department or added new corporate recruiters to their team. And then when hiring slowed down, it was kind of like last in, first out. We're going to get rid of those people. They may have even paid a premium on them. And then it started to shift. And we saw there were definitely a few weeks where I was out there saying, these are startups, these are tech companies. We are not seeing this in our industry in mass right now. And now we are. So I think that there's a lot of different reasons these layoffs are happening, but my summary is that it's all driven by fear right now, fear of this looming recession, fear of where the economy is going. I think the smart companies are hanging on to their performers. Even if they're not super busy right now, there's a lot that they can be doing because the market is going to flip again. I can't tell you when, but Brent, we've been doing this 15 years. It always flips. It's just continuous and it's a cycle. So I think the companies that are hanging on to their people, reskilling them, repurposing them, those are the ones that are going to really thrive when the market is back in the candidates' hands.
Yeah, Charlie, it's interesting because you do see some companies that are still growing. They are still hiring.
Yeah.
They're not as affected by this downturn. I think it goes to what you said, Brent, which was the systems. They have the good systems in place where they're adding customers, they're growing, and they're actually needing more talent, and they're scooping up the ones that maybe other companies couldn't work with. Brent, talk a little bit about this. And I'm curious to ask you this question. Do you think this is something that's been in the works for a while? We saw so many announcements on November 9th right after the election and the weeks following. Do you think this has been in the works for a while? And talk about it a little bit from your perspective.
I think people had blinders on for a couple of years because it got real easy. I think it got easy in recruiting. I think it got easy in real estate. I think it got easy in freight brokerage. Because how many times have we said this? You didn't have to sell, you had to service. So what happens was you had a lot of people who were sellers who, in theory, and I hate to say this, were order takers. They were facilitating, right? The stuff was coming to them. They didn't. So my question is, who's getting exposed and who kind of got the brunt of this? Is think about people that started or came into the industry the last couple of years. Were they really selling? Were they taught a skill set? Or were they just plugging into a system and moving some loads? There's a difference. And when it comes down to like crunch time and everybody's looking at numbers and everybody's looking at producers and just studying pure data, how many of these people are actually producing at a high level? And I'll tell you this too, one of the other positions that got exposed, and this is tough, are mid-level managers and people that are making too much money. Because now a company is going to say, well, hey, you're kind of sitting back getting all these commissions. You're making $500,000. Well, I'm going to keep those accounts and I appreciate you, but this isn't going to be a fit anymore. So there's a diversity of what's going on too. You're getting people that are getting impacted at $50,000 and $500,000 and everything in between. One of the things that if I'm in that realm and I would coach myself on, never stop selling. You always have to be driving revenue through new relationships, tapping into the relationships you have and going deeper, deeper, right? Not just always wired and new, developing people around you. You can still drive revenue through other people. Are you making yourself indispensable just because you're an ATM machine to a company? Because here's the reality, and this is hard, Trey. I hate to say it, but you're either an asset or a liability in corporate America. You're making the money or you cost them money. And that's a real hard conversation that not a lot of people are having, but sometimes you got to look in the mirror too.
Yeah, and it goes back to the idea that everybody's in sales, and you can provide value, and that's to me the key word. That's the word I'm focused on for 2023 is the idea of value. What value can I bring to an organization? Not what is my value as a person, that's different, but what value am I bringing to an organization? Because at the end of the day, they're not going to miss that if you're providing a lot of value. And so, Charlie, I want to switch over to you real quick and talk about, what do you do? Like if somebody out there, man, went through this and got laid off, what's the first piece of advice that you're going to give them to do in this time?
Call a recruiter. That is where you're going to get
a layup. And that was a layup.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Call CS Recruiting if we can't help you, Brent. No, I mean, I think that we were talking about this before the show, and the reality is that a lot of the candidates in our industry or employees that have been laid off are strategic account managers, and they really fall in that account management category. They maybe brought those accounts on early in their career, but they've been making residuals, managing, nurturing, farming those accounts. They've also been making a ton of money. And I think that is the hardest thing for some of these now candidates to stomach is, a lot of your total earnings was based on incentive or commission from these years and years of building up the relationships. You're not going to be able to secure a base salary of $300,000-$400,000 for what you can do. And so it's not good news. I wish I had better news to deliver, but a lot of these candidates are going to have to take a step back. Hopefully they'll take 2 steps forward, but it is rebuilding time. The other thing I think is really important, especially with the topic we all love, non-compete, is that these skills are very transferable within the industry. So if you've worked at a brokerage for most of your career and you're either limited by a non-compete or burnt out, like explore the shipper side, explore the asset side. There's so much going on in the tech space, even with equipment. So there is still a lot of hope for how you might be able to pivot in your career, really leveraging relationships, knowledge, skills. You don't have to stay on the same path necessarily.
Yeah, that's a good point. David brings up a topic. He says he doesn't think it's going to flip in Q3 or Q4. That kind of begs the question: how long is this going to last? Like, what do you guys think is, you know, putting the eight ball on just a little bit? What do you guys think is what we're heading into in 2023? Is this a year to see? Is this a year and a half? And we saw 2.5, 3 years, like Brent, like you said, of pretty good times. What are you anticipating is going to happen, or what would you recommend for people to anticipate is going to happen?
Yeah, look, we get a lot of intel. I mean, my phone blows up all day long. I feel like I get access on the inside to a lot of information. I feel like Q1 is going to feel a lot like Q4. I think that, I've always studied the trends of what Charlie and I do and the phone calls that we get. When operational calls are coming in, it tells me a lot. When everything is so sales driven, I know what's going on, right? Because companies are like, oh my goodness, we need more freight. This is going to be the easy fix and everything else. So the fact that it's so dominant there tells me a lot, because in reality, we're already in Q1, right? We're hiring even in January through March. Now, will that flip in Q2? It's sure, but that's an unpredictable dynamic. I think look, you got to control what you can control. None of us, three of us, or anyone watching this knows what's going to happen on February 17th, what's going to happen on April 5th. So I don't live that way. You got to bucket things down and narrow down the lanes and just kind of focus on what you can get now. But I think we're also in a high touch moment. I think sellers need to be getting in front of people as much as they can. It's a contact sport. You have to embrace the relationships that you can and everything else. So will it flip? I'm sure it will. It always does. But right now, and here's the thing too, if you're a candidate and you're watching this, like, you have to understand, you got to sell yourself high, because when you are in demand, it gives you the magic word, which is leverage. I think Charlie would validate this right now. People want what they want. They need what they need. The demand for plug and play, which makes her and I get a lot busier, is right now. For the last little bit, it was ramp up. We'll give you 6 to 8 months. We'll teach freight 101. No problem. Take your time. We got equity money. We're just going to grow. Don't worry about revenue. Game changed. Done.
Yeah.
So now it's all production.
I'll validate that. And it's an interesting time. Again, we were talking about this before the show, but we are seeing a higher turnover rate than usual. So in the recruiting world, we're seeing a lot of candidates not make it to term being our guarantee date, but what it really is that retention. So whether it's 30, 60, 90 days, I think that a lot of employers are keeping their new hires on a very short leash. Part of that is just mismanaged expectations. We're not robots. We are humans. We need to transition. We need to observe. We need to build new relationships before any switches are going to be turned on and we can hit the ground running. So that is my advice to employers is, everyone was talking, we want to hire for personality. We want a good character, cultural fit. If you got those people, hang on to them. You have to really manage the expectations. There is no such thing as a transferable book of business. Somebody's not leaving their job on Friday and bringing their Rolodex full of opportunity to move freight with a new company on Monday. Brent, I'm sure you'll validate that too. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think that the leash is much shorter right now. I mean, when you start getting people 30, 60, 90 days and it's not working, you can't always blame the candidates either, right? Sometimes, I hate to say it, you got to look in the mirror. What was our onboarding like? Did we set this person up to win? Were we setting these standards and expectations? There's a great book behind me called The First 90 Days. I think everyone should read that, right? Because it's not like, well, hey, you've been in sales, just go. Exactly. Well, yeah, that's a little funky, right? So you also have to set those expectations, have those hard conversations. People don't know what they don't know. And when you start to talk about remote work and everything, you have to think people are being measured and monitored differently. Companies cannot see your activity visually. So you know what they do it? They see it electronically. Mm-hmm. So now there's software and technology where I know when you logged into your email. I see when you logged into LinkedIn. I see if you're putting in bets on Barstool and messing around all day long. I just have more access and visibility. Now, that's okay if you're producing results. But if you're not producing results, it's kind of a red flag.
Yeah, and it seems like there's an imbalance between employers that really have high demands right now and maybe employees who, as you said, have had it a little too easy for the last 2 years. And that's kind of colliding right now, especially when it comes to that onboarding process. But you're right, the process is really important. Training and onboarding is the key to a successful employee. And still, a lot of companies don't have that figured out. A lot of times they think that if somebody has experience in the industry, they'll just be able to plug right in and get started right away. And some might, but it's a very small percentage of people that would be successful in terms of doing that. All right, now listen, you guys have been agreeing too much so far on the show. I know that there's some things we got to talk about here. So we got to bring this up. There's been some interesting articles lately about, I'll say this, in the summer, in the spring, Charlie, you were talking 4-week work weeks and remote work and all that, which is still kind of, still there. But then Brent, you've been pushing, hey, people want people back in the office, all those kind of things. There's some interesting statistics I wanted to share with you guys about remote openings. Check this out. There's more remote workers than remote openings. And right now it's almost by a 2-to-1 margin. So for every 2 people that want to work remote, there's only 1 job opening to work remote. Brent, I got to throw this to you real quick. What's happening with this, man? What's changing?
Look, Charlie has a remote team. I have a remote team. You have to remember there's a lot to unpack here because the old school formula, productivity, gave you flexibility. You put up numbers, you get a little bit runway, right? Almost 3 years ago, that changed. Everybody got warranted to it. I'm still a believer that there is value in being in an office. I think many people that watch this would agree with me. And I think it's all generational. I think it's chapter of life where you are in your career as well. If you're a young person and you want to get after it and you want to learn, you want to understand culture, you want to be in front of leadership, there's value being in the office. If you're established and now I'm 32 to 38 and I've kind of got my groove going, I may want a little bit more remote because chapter of life, that's going to warrant me better. So it's not a black and white answer, but I'll tell you, a lot of the companies we deal with, 100% we have remote positions all day long. The right person has to be set up to win in that system. Mm-hmm. A lot of the companies want their people back though. And it can be, yes, camaraderie, culture. But again, I think a lot of it too is just learning. If you're a young person, I don't think you should be sitting at home trying to figure it all out. I compared it, you guys may laugh at this, but I compare it. You ever have young kids that watch other kids play on YouTube?
Oh yeah.
That's what I think of with remote work with young people. Get out and play. Get out and engage. Get outside and engage. Right. Understand social skills and all these different things, right? So that's my comparison, but pros and cons to each.
It's a double-edged sword because if you don't have an environment in the office that is actually conducive for that type of engagement, for that collaboration, if somebody's going to go to the office and just sit silent with their headphones on, do they want to be at the office? So I think if you want people back in the office, you need to give it a reason to really be back at the office. But before I turn to you, Charlie, real quick, I want to share this. This is a poll that I had 2 months ago where I asked, which work setup will more companies land on in 2 years? At that time, 9 out of 10 people felt it was going to be a hybrid role. Only 1 out of 16 said fully remote workforce. We'll see if that changes, but 2 months ago, that's where people were. And Charlie, you had a couple of polls. I want to put this one up before you answer. You put this poll up on LinkedIn recently, had almost 1,600 votes. Incredible. Would people rather have a 4-day work week or would they rather work from home? Obviously, the return to office is not a part of this poll, but I thought that was really fascinating as well, that some people would actually work less time if they had to go to an office than work from home. What are your thoughts about where this is shifting from this return to office and remote work situation?
I'm a proponent for remote work. It's how we run our business, and it's been hard, but we've been very successful with the right processes and policies. I will always stand behind the idea that if you are looking for a rock star or you are really looking to hire someone with very niche experience, you have to think about who's within 20-mile radius of your office. That's what you're going to get. It may be a B player. If you really want the best person, you have to expand that. And whether it's hybrid and, it's a longer commute, but they could come in every so often, or it's fully remote, the best person is not going to live in your zip code 90% of the time. So I think companies have to remember that. I think another thing that's really interesting what's happening right now is we have so many different generations in the workforce. And so you've got leadership that, maybe that boomer generation, you've got this new generation coming in and they have wants, and their wants are more important than their needs, and their wants are what they're
for now.
For now.
Exactly. that may change.
Yeah, it probably is changing. And I think that's where, unfortunately, I think companies are going to be in a position, if they want people in the office, jobs are, in high demand, people are going to have to be in the office. So that want need, again, is going to shift. But I still will hammer home all day, the best person might not be able to come to your office every day.
Yeah, and I like to piggyback on what Brent said. It's not a black or white issue because I think about this for myself personally. We're all remote. I've been working remote for 7 years now. But what was different was that my wife and kids were here during that time. So as an extrovert, I got a little bit of that extrovertedness with lunch and going on walks or walking up and saying hi to them. And now they're gone. My wife's working and they're at school all day. And now as an extrovert, I'm like, man, I wish I could go to the office and hang out with Brent or something like that. Like I kind of miss that kind of thing. I'm going to Home Depot at lunch just to see Troy in the tile section, my buddy. It's like I'm just trying to hang out with people. And so I think also there's just not one style that's going to fit everybody. And so sometimes as an organization, you have to look and see where do people work best. I firmly believe we have enough technology that you can create culture and collaboration regardless of where you are. But I think, Brent, to your point, some people are going to want to be office. They're going to get a lot out of that. There's some, osmosis that can happen from a skills perspective, but they're going to be other people. They'd be like, I don't want to go to the office. I don't want to get in my car and drive. I don't want to spend an hour in the car that I've been spending at home. It's not a black or white issue. Where do you see this going?
And there's no right or wrong answer to that.
Right.
Like to each their own, right? Like there's no downside to like having these certain needs and wants. But I'll tell you what, like I've always believed that sales and recruiting is nothing more than an exchange of energy. And even when I was in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, I love going to offices. I've said this before, 2 times a day. I want to go there at 8 a.m. and I want to go there at 1 p.m. because I'm only looking for one thing. It tells me everything I need to know about your culture. Buzz. What do I hear? I'm using my senses. The environment that I went into, it was buzzing on a Tuesday before Thanksgiving at 8 a.m. That's a winning environment to me, right? And so like when you start to pick these things up, that is culture. I want to understand what's going on behind the scenes. Are people getting after it? Are they winning? Like all these things. You don't want to get me started on the 4-day work week, but I think that
I do want to get you started on the 4-day work week.
We can talk about that because I think that again, there's nothing right or wrong, but I think people that want to embrace that, again, that may suffice for their chapter of life, where they are, what they're looking for. It does not make them bad humans in any capacity. I think people that have to embrace that, they just have to know that there's killers like myself that are going to come behind you and work 7. So sometimes you just got to consciously be aware, and some people are very effective with their time. I think Charlie and myself, we time block probably like nobody else, right? So I feel like I get 2 or 3 days in one, but if I get 2 or 3 days in one and I can do that over 5 or 6 days, I don't have 7-day weeks. I have 14 and 15-day weeks. So when somebody now wants to work 4, I'm 3xing my activity and input against you. That's just a hard person to run against. And again, doesn't make it right or wrong. You just got to constantly be aware of this if you're getting lacked, if other people are getting activity. So it's just something people have to consciously know.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to what you say in that. At the same time, we see like dentists work 4 days, we see nurses and doctors work 3 days, and different industries have different standards. So I don't, it's like I think it depends on what you want. Like how much do you want to go after it? How much do you really want to go after it? Like I'm at an interesting place in my life, Brent. This is an interesting conversation. Yeah. I've been talking to people about my business and what we want to do. And I have 2 daughters that are going to be 15 and 13 in the next 2 months, 15 and 13. I got 5 years left with them. Do I want to go hard, all out, 6 days a week, throwing all this in there to try to build a really big business and miss time with them? Can I do both? Do I need to scale back a little bit for the next 5 years or 4 years and then go after it really hard at that point? Like in my place in life, I have to make that decision and think through that. And I think that's what it's all about is I definitely want to go hard. But what I don't want to do is get 5 years down the road and my daughters don't even want to spend time with me because I made something else more important. Like it's a balance. You know what I'm saying? And you got young daughters. It's a challenge.
Look, balance is a hard word. Balance is a hard word. I think you have to pick your sides. You can't be 2 places at once, right? And again, no right or wrong. I think it depends on what your whys are too. Like for me, I know 100%. Why I go so hard, right? So not that I self-justify that. Like, dude, you just go your grinder for your kids. But I think my household knows what they signed up for as well. And I know the trips and experiences that the rewards that we get from my hard work. And so I'm willing to sacrifice some of that stuff. Now, here's the thing too. We can go on a tangent. I also know that kids love presents, not presents. They love time.
Presents, right.
But I don't miss any school events. I don't miss dance performances. Trust me, I'm there, right?
Yeah, you got to be. It's so important. That's right.
This is my 3rd child, and I take what we do very, very seriously.
And when I'm home, man, putting that phone down so that the time I do get, man, we are present. We are actually there. That's been a big game changer for us a little bit. All right, so Charlie, your turn. Talk a little about the 4-day work week. Tell everybody why this is a good thing.
Yeah, so we have an interesting model. We do not say that we have a 4-day work week. We have what we call flexible Fridays. We've been doing this since last May. It was originally a summer program for our team. We extended it because our productivity was still up and the employee satisfaction, the employee engagement was much higher. So what I have to think about is my team. Do I work a 4-day work week? No, I'm working the same amount as Brent, but it might be from 8 to 10 at night. It might be on a Sunday afternoon. Something I also find is that when I have permission to disconnect, and I do on Fridays, we have no meetings on Fridays, no deadlines. I'm going to say the majority of our team does work on Fridays. It's a different type of work, though. If I know that I'm not being needed, I'm going to go take a walk and I'm going to come back and I'm going to have a genius idea that never would have come to me if I was just sitting in front of my screen, typing all day. So I think we have to define work differently. Like my best ideas come when I am away from my work, when I actually can digest, clear my head. A lot of times, like if I'm on vacation, I choose to work because that's when I'm motivated. But I have to think about my team, and my team needs to know that we're protecting them from burnout by offering this option and saying, hey, we're going to lay off on Fridays. You still got to keep your numbers up. You still have to hit your goals. It's pretty crystal clear. And we have people who smash their goals by Thursday afternoon. No judgment what they do on Fridays. If they want to make more money, they're going to work on Fridays. If they feel good about what they've done that week, they should enjoy some time off and, make it more of a 2.5 day, almost 3-day weekend. So I think that's what employers need to think about. From a business owner standpoint, I'm never working a 4-day work week. I am connected to my work. I am always all.
There's no such thing as a business owner working 4 days.
Exactly. But I cannot expect my team to feel that way. And so by giving them that permission, I think that is a huge reflection of our culture and how we treat our people.
I think there's two things that are really important about that for companies that want to take that path. First of all, is accountability. Like still have to produce, the productivity still has to remain high. But then two is consistency with allowing them to have that time off. It's almost like, hey, unlimited PTO, but how many people actually take it because they feel guilty or it's kind of silly, right? Like as a leader, you're demonstrating that and you're saying, hey, Fridays, do what you want to do, but you still have to perform. How much of that is a product of the culture versus finding the right people that fit in that culture for you, Charlie?
It's both. I mean, it definitely is both. And, something that's interesting with the generation that's coming into the workforce now is they have been set up to work like this, not necessarily 4-day work weeks, but they're coming from college. Many of them spent 2 out of their 4 years in college working or, doing their classes and their schoolwork remotely. So when we're interviewing at that entry level and asking them how they feel about remote work, can they stay focused? Can they stay accountable? They're like, of course I can. I just graduated college and did that for the last 2 years. That's going to shift with no pandemic, hopefully in our future. It's going to be interesting how the next generation, 4 years going to classrooms, really being face-to-face. It's going to be interesting to see how they feel about it.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that test scores and remedial training for college students went way up. Test scores went down and remedial training went up. I don't know if they learned a whole lot during the pandemic of the virtual work time. So I don't even know if that's a good measuring stick for their ability to do that in a job. But all right, we're going to pause for a second. We're going to get you in a minute. We're going to pause because every day on the show, we've been celebrating the National Day. Obviously, today is a day that we all remember. It is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. And so it's crazy that it's been 81 years. I don't know if you guys are if you realize it's been 81 years since Pearl Harbor, which is crazy. My family, we got the chance to go to Pearl Harbor in May and see it. My kids have been studying it. So that was a really great thing to go and check that out. What do you guys, thoughts, comments? Do you have anybody in your family that served in the military? Do you have any connection to that? Have you been to Pearl Harbor?
My comment is that I wish more companies would be open to veteran talent. And I feel that a lot in our industry where you've got a lot of these veterans who have served our country. They have been in logistics. They have been in much more difficult situations than most normal employees. And a lot of companies, and I get it, if they're working with a recruiter, they want competitor talent, but they kind of discount those veterans and they want someone with civilian experience, commercial experience. So that's my plea is for more companies to be open to the skill set, to the experience that those people really had and what they can bring with them, because Yes, it is important. And look what they've done for us.
And you talk about process and training. If you've been in the military, you've gone through incredible training and you've been living by processes for 4 years or longer.
No kidding.
I mean, and that's what a lot of companies really lack are structure, processes, and training. So I agree with you on that. Brent, you've been out to Pearl Harbor. You've been out there to see all
I
that.
have. Yeah, it's been a couple years.
It's incredible, isn't it?
I've been to Hawaii, but definitely been there. But I 100% agree with Charlie. You know, I think that a lot of companies love athletes, right? Because they're kind of built in a competitive environment. I think you can say the same for veterans, especially when it does come to like an operational logistical dynamic. Plus, let's be honest, they've worked under pretty tense environments and some pressure, right? So I think I have a lot of respect for the individuals who have done what they've done, because working in a battlefield versus a warehouse is a little bit different. So I think that this is something that people consciously need to be aware of, and structure. There's no looseness in the military, right?
No,
it is literally
how you make your bed, how you fold your clothes, how you eat your meal. Like it's it's incredible
to the minute. Yeah. So I just have so much great pride for this country that I think we should embrace that more and more.
I would even say this, Brent. I would go so far as to say I think that a veteran probably has more potential than an athlete for this reason. How many athletes get to college, maybe play college sports or high school sports on talent alone, not on hard work? Not, I mean, like if you're the best player, it's not hard. Like, basketball's not hard when you're the best player on the floor, right?
You know what's so funny? Just this morning, I was listening to, like, you know me, I listen to a lot of stuff, but I was listening to an Eric Thomas tape where he's like, okay, you've been embraced your whole life. You're the biggest, the baddest, the best, all this stuff. You make it to a certain level, and now's when you chill. Now's when you get comfortable. Now's when you take your foot off the gas. You know what I mean? You owe it to everybody that when you get those opportunities, you have to be able to seize it. And I agree. A lot of people, I think this correlates so much. Sports and business is so similar. When you become a 10, 12, 15-year veteran, a lot of people do take their foot off the gas. They feel like they've made it in their career. They go on auto dial, and I hate to see it, but this directly impacts some of the layoffs that we've seen. You can never stop growing. You can never be comfortable. Corporate America, I hate to say it, is not as safe as everyone thinks, but at the same time, entrepreneurship is very hard. And I think we live in a society where people look at Instagram and they think you start an LLC and you get a Lambo. Everyone shows you the highlight reel, the goods, right? Everyone kind of makes this entrepreneurship journey something. But if you're not going to take that leap, you can be an intrapreneur. An intrapreneur is a very big word that people have to start to embrace. You can build a business within a business.
That's right.
And I think people should start to look in like 3-year blocks, just like in school. I don't know why I'm just going, but this makes sense. If you're in kindergarten to 5th grade, you're learning. There's a skill set there, right? Now I'm going to junior high. Okay, 3-year block. In a company, where can I go to get better, to enhance my skills, to get exposed to leadership, all these things. And then you just continually graduate, just like in education in school. There's going to be the same journey in your career. And you have to start to think about it this way.
Yeah,
but
I was just talking to go ahead.
Right. Employers have to make room for that. And I think that's where the shift needs to happen is, yes, when you are selling, you're selling yourself, you're an entrepreneur, but how is your company going to support that? Whether it's through, the personal branding or just giving you that space to build, something that is in line with company values, but you can call your own. So I think the employers have a bit of a way to go there.
It's an incredible way for retention. I had Sarah Ruffcorn on my show from Trinity Logistics last week, and she has a 20-year career at Trinity, but she was talking about how she would spend 3 years in one area, and then they needed a new thing to get started, or new projects, and she did that, and she got to do what you said, Brent, which is kind of start and build her own thing within the walls of Trinity Logistics, and that's just as powerful as being an entrepreneur. And I can tell you this, when you're at a company, it is so easy to hide. But man, if you hide, that you're susceptible. I mean, you're going to be one of the first ones cut when they figure all that out. So as an entrepreneur, you can't hide.
And I agree with Charlie too. Like, again, these are questions that like candidates should start to be asking. Do you guys embrace personal branding? Am I going to be restricted in putting myself out there? Look, we know what's going on. Everybody wants to build a brand and be a face. And I've always said you can't pay your mortgage with likes. You have to still generate revenue, right?
That's right.
But at the same time, like, that's the world we live in. And I don't fault people for wanting to put themselves out there. A lot of people won't. So if you do, fully embrace it. But these are questions. See how we're working now? This is beyond a base salary increase. These are questions and expectations and standards that need to be asked so you get alignment. When you take short money and you're just moving the financial thermostat, it's going to get hot at some point. That's one aspect of so much about the system that you're going into.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think about brands that are, making that a part of what they do, like Freightvana, Rocket Shipping, and what Gabe is doing up there. I mean, they're making this a part. I mean, Charlie, you promote your team to put things out there. I've seen a lot of those flexible Friday posts from your team that do that. I think the companies that embrace that are going to provide Brent that they're going to scratch that itch that people have to build that personal brand. And if they have a really good culture, they shouldn't be afraid of their people, leaving because they got something really great going on. But there's a lot more than just how much are you going to pay and when do I need to show up for work. There's a whole lot more to it in that regard. Okay, we got to pause for one more thing. We got our random question of the day. We've been doing this for a couple months now. It's a lot of fun. So this question's always random. I don't know what it is. It could be funny. It could be serious. It could be a good question. It could just be a dud. But we'll find out. Let's see. What is the random question of the day? It is, what is the Oh, I love this. Our producers know who they're talking to. What is the best sitcom from the 90s and why? I'm sure those in the comments would have something to say as well. Tell us what you think is the best sitcom of the 90s. Brent, I'm going to give you the first one. Did you watch sitcoms of the 90s or were you just out on the court just playing all the time? I have a feeling I know which one it is. What's your favorite sitcom from the 90s?
I still don't watch a lot of TV, but Charlie and I are the same age. Saved by the Bell. If I can call Saved by the Bell a sitcom, right? I was
Absolutely. Saturday mornings, baby.
That was the jam.
Was that 90s or 80s?
It was late 80s, early 90s. Late 80s, early 90s. So we'll give it to them. Yeah.
Together.
I mean, AC Slater, it doesn't look that much older than you and I. It can't be that old.
So that would be, if that's 90s.
All right, Saved by the Bell.
Been around.
Great show. Kelly Kapowski had a little crush on her growing up. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie, how about you?
I have to go with like a Seinfeld or The Office, but are those 90s?
Seinfeld is. The Office is more 2000s.
Okay,
Yeah, Seinfeld is 90s.
Seinfeld, just a classic.
Classic, yes.
Every night in our house on repeat. So yeah, Seinfeld.
So Charlie, I'm with you. Like I like Saved by the Bell. That was more like in my middle school years for me, Brent, in that regard. So I don't remember it quite as well. I didn't watch it every Saturday morning. I liked it. But Seinfeld was the first TV show that when it went off the air, I was actually sad. Like it was weird. It was this feeling of like loss that I'd never felt before for these characters and for this show. So I'm gonna have to go with you and say Seinfeld, the 90s.
They didn't jump the shark. They kind of they left when we wanted more, and that's probably the best way to do it.
Oh, super smart, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty phenomenal in that part. And what's funny is the first season, if you go back and watch it, because now with streaming you can go watch these things. If you go back and watch the first season, it wasn't very good. Like it was kind of a silly show, but they developed the characters and they got better. And after a while, it became like, man, we really connect with these people. And they left on the top. That is for sure. They definitely did that. Because I think that if they came back now, we'd probably want more of that. So good question. That's a good question. You got to know your audience. Great question there. Yeah, very good. All right, let's finish with this. We're 46 minutes. It's been a great conversation. I want to finish with this. If people are out there, and like we talked about earlier, their skill set is not needed right now. Like, what's the tip for you? It's the end of year. It's a good time to do some introspection, some reflection, some evaluation. Charlie, what's your advice for people who might be in that situation where they're looking for an opportunity outside of calling you guys as recruiters?
Network like crazy. I mean, I think that is the one thing I have learned, definitely in recruiting, but I have to believe that a lot of industries work in this way, that what goes around comes around. I mean, I have posted things before where I'm getting responses from emails that I sent in 2012, and no hard feelings. They didn't respond to me for 10 years, but now they need me. And so I think that is the beauty of just the job search, the recruiting, is you are literally planting seeds, making impressions, forming relationships. It will come back. It will come back through someone remembering you, through someone referring you, through, just different, degrees of connection. So that's what I always tell my team, is like every single person you talk to has value. It may be today, it may be tomorrow, it may be in 4 years, but I think that's probably my best advice is network, educate yourself, put yourself out there, know the right people. I
love that. Networking is so important. And I would go a step further and say, make a list of maybe the top 10 or 20 companies that you think you want to work for and the top 10 or 20 leaders that you think you want to work for based upon what you know online or who you've met, because networking specifically with them might lead to an opportunity where I really believe this. I'd rather dig ditches with the person and the company that I really value and respect than to do my dream job with a company or a person that I don't respect in that way. So I love that tip. All right, Brent, over to you, man.
Yeah, I think the best time to know a recruiter is not when you need us. Like, just get on our radar, right? So like, I agree with Charlie. Like, you should be reaching out to us, people at the company. There's no wasted conversations ever. It's all timing, and everyone's preaches timing, but it's a very real thing. You don't think I've placed people that I've talked to 7 years ago this year right? But we've built that relationship. And here's the thing too. This is the importance behind what Charlie and I do. Having a relationship with a recruiter is a one call away shop. Just like you have a barber, a landscaper, an accountant, a lawyer, you want to have somebody like us in your back pocket. If nothing else, and I think Charlie and her team would validate this, sometimes we're just educating people on what's going on in the market. You can't always believe everything you read, see, and hear, but guess what? We have a lot of intel. We're having conversations with hiring managers. We're having conversations with people that are being laid off or know of layoffs coming. We're pretty darn good intel. So I think that we're very, very good people to know for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's absolutely right. It's just it's not a bad time to have that in your back pocket. Like you said, it makes a ton of sense. Man, this has been a ton of fun. I'm so glad that you guys are part of the show. We've had a great time with that. How can people get in touch with you, Charlie, real quick? Easiest way for people to get in touch with you.
Find us on LinkedIn, send me a DM, or reach out to someone on my team if you're hiring or if you're looking for a new opportunity.
And Brent?
Same. LinkedIn's always going to be the easiest. Myself, the company, the team. Shoot, we've even gone over to Instagram and TikTok. I think we're pretty easy people to find. So, and I think a good follow too.
Not a bad follow, that's for sure. Everybody, thanks for watching. Really appreciate having on the show. Listen, tomorrow, episode 200. So make sure you come back for a little Matt Leffler and some surprises. We're going to be talking about what's going on in the future. So we'll see you guys right back here tomorrow for episode 200. Have a killer day, everybody. We will see you guys real soon. Peace out. Thanks, guys.